It's that time of week again where we talk about the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Episode 7, The Syringe Squad. So let's get into it. Okay, now before I begin, two things. First thing, spoiler warning, there will be spoilers in this review. So if you haven't watched it yet, jump off, watch the episode, come back. Or carry on with this, and if you don't mind spoilers. I'll try and keep them to a minimum anyway, but yeah, it's bound to happen. I can't talk about it without. Secondly, if you haven't hit the subscribe button, please consider doing so. I do review Star Trek on a weekly basis. I'm also reviewing the Orville as well. Today's episode review is up for episode 3 of that, so you can go and check that out. Hit the notification bell so you don't lose track of my videos and when they come up. Yeah, so let's get into this one, episode 7. This series has been really good at the moment. I've been really enjoying it. It's got its issues, but for the most part, it's been a wonderful series. Is this episode any good? Does it maintain that momentum? So we'll talk about it. So this episode, the Syringe Squad, essentially what this episode is about is how this episode started is we see T'Pring, Spock's wife. You know, we're at this Vulcan Criminal Rehabilitation Centre. And at first I'm like, oh, you know, because sometimes when I see certain characters, I'm like, oh, it's about, you know, it's about this or this person, and I'm a bit like that. And that's what I got at the beginning. But as the episode progresses, we find out that there's this Dr. Aspen on board the ship, and there's these colonial ships that have gone missing, and the Enterprise has got to go across outside of Federation space to try and rescue these refugees and this sort of a thing. But as they leave Federation space, when they get onto the other side, they drop buoys so they can keep in touch with the Federation if need be. But the Enterprise gets overtaken by pirates essentially, and all the crew get taken hostage, with the exception of Spock, Nurse Chapel, and this Dr. Aspen, and they're running around the ship trying to free things up. Before this occurred, you had an away mission, with the captain, head down, trying to find out what had happened to these these refugees, these colonials, and they've all been taken prisoner, and yeah, all this silly stuff going on. Now, there's a double cross as the episode progresses, and there's a big reveal at the end of the episode, which I will talk about at the end of this, but I don't really want to go any more into the story of the episode for you so that it isn't thoroughly spoiled. I will say that this episode thematically plays with ideas of refugee crisis, of identity, essentially leaning into sort of identity politics, you know, about being who you are. You can read into that what you will. I won't get too deep into the messaging there. It's not too heavy-handed, but it is there. Yeah, you see where I'm going with that, but I won't go there with that, because it could be a long conversation. But it's playing in these sort of things that are relevant to today, in today's society, with things that are going on in the world with regards to these sort of thematic things. Now, the episode does also very heavily play into the sort of love triangle between, well, I wouldn't say love triangle, but you know, you've got Spock who's with T'Pring, and there's something between him and Nurse Chapel. Kind of plays in that sort of ball pit as well, which I quite like. I like Ethan Peck. I think he's really good as Ace version of Spock. He plays off of Nurse Chapel very well. There is this connection between them that you do feel, more so than what you feel between him and T'Pring. I hope this does progress as the series continues, and it isn't left. This is the end of that. Now, there were some elements to the episode that I didn't really enjoy. I didn't like the makeup on the big green guy, one of the people who'd taken him prisoner. I didn't like that. It looked out of place. There was elements of humour with Anson Mount himself. There are certain things that just didn't sit right with me for how he portrayed the character in this particular episode. It's little nuances within his performance that we haven't seen before. Nuances that didn't really click with me, I should say. Now, I'm being quite petty here, but I look for things like this consistency in character, and there are little elements. It's like certain facial features, and I think largely the episode in some elements didn't know whether it wanted to be comedic or not. I think, considering that thematically the episode is about, part of the episode is about identity, I think that this episode actually failed with what it wanted to do. It wanted to have this serious tone, and it wanted to but have humour with it at the same time. They didn't work hand in hand here. The humour's very small, very subtle in character performances, like I said, from Anson Mount, and not necessarily the best sort of stuff that we've had. As a whole, it's one of the weaker episodes of the series. I'm not saying it's a bad episode, it's not bad at all. I've seen far worse within Picard and Discovery. It was an enjoyable episode, I would watch it again, but when ranked against other episodes within the season, it would drop down a notch for me. And that's just my opinion. Now, I would be interested in your opinion of that as well. So leave me in the comments what you believe. Now, I'm going to talk about that end, because that end is big. The big reveal. This touches upon... So step away now if you don't want to know. But this touches upon Star Trek V, and we find out that one of the prisoners that is being held on this Vulcan Criminal Rehabilitation Centre is a Vulcan that has accepted emotion, and his name is Sybok. Yes, Sybok, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, directed by William Shatner himself. Sybok, Spock's brother. They've introduced Spock's brother into it. And to be honest, to be fair, from the back when you saw him, it looked like Sybok, a younger version. You didn't see his face, but I'm intrigued by this. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in exploring a bit more of the character of Sybok. So yeah, that part all good. Where it leads to, yes, yeah, that part, yeah. I was quite, well, Sybok me down. It's Sybok. Yeah, anyway, so that's it. My quick talk about this episode. Sorry, I just knocked the table there, shook the camera. That's it. Let me know your thoughts down below on this episode. And let's have a friendly discussion. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next week. Take care all and goodbye.